Coming up on this episode of the Soul Twin Stars podcast.
It has changed my life and it's not something I ever planned on doing. Can you ask your boyfriend to put his junk away before he comes in the kitchen?
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to accidentally eat the wrong hot dog. You know, it's just, it's ridiculous.
I knew he died of a drug overdose. Nobody told me he died of a drug overdose. Nobody hinted that he died of a drug overdose.
No, if you need something from your partner, your lover, your friend, the world, your job, speak up about it. Because if you don't, that's where disease starts, and we don't want that.
I could not believe that happened, and I thought, oh my God.
But yeah, you have to be authentic to what you know and what your frequency can handle.
Hi, I'm Lady Shadowe, a witch with much to share, stirring the cauldron with magical self-care.
Hi, I'm Peaceful Nick, a medium divine. I chat with the dead and interpret every sign.
We are Soul Twin Stars, best friends through it all.
From spells to healing, we're answering the call.
From moon cycles to menopause and making peace with the dead.
We aren't afraid to talk about what's rarely said.
So tune in each week to get raw, real, and wise.
Let's talk about a spiritual life with absolutely no disguise. Welcome to the Soul Twin Stars podcast, Uninhibited Spirituality.
Welcome, everyone. This is our first podcast, the Soul Twin Stars podcast. We are so excited to be launching our first episode. Tonight, there'll be all kinds of raw and exciting things we'll be talking about, everything from spiritual activities to paranormal activity to just life activities. So great to be here with my BFF, Peaceful Nick, and this podcast is called You Can Change Everything in 1 Second. Welcome, Peaceful Nick, my BFF. What's going on over there?
Hi, Lady Shadowe. I'm so excited for the premiere episode. I am Peaceful Nick, the medium. I'm a scientist and an evidential medium, authentically bridging the spiritual and scientific worlds to bring healing through mediumship, grounded in real evidence, and to let everyone know that sometimes imperfection is perfection.
Yes, celebrate your imperfections. They all add up to perfection. Absolutely.
I would like to thank our sponsors, Beans and Buttercream, a woman-owned business. It's a cottage bakery specializing in custom hand-decorated sugar cookies and delicious French macarons. Find Beans and Buttercream on Facebook, and they are delicious. If you have any questions about it, email me, send me a message. I'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. And I have two sponsors as well. Abanathy Photography, based in Kentucky, serving the lower Western Kentucky region, also the tip of Tennessee, abanathyphotography.com. They do destination weddings. They do drone photography. They do everything. Also, the author, Mary Ray, of the infamous workbook, Tell the Devil to Go to Hell, which, oh my gosh, I love that title. What a super fun journey that you can interactively take with the author and her journey of how she did the same thing in trying to rid yourself of guilt, fear, and the idea of sin, and the idea that we are not perfect as we are. So thank you, sponsors.
The purpose of our podcast is to just share authentic stories of awakening, life challenges, body changes, how to overcome different issues in our life, spirituality, mediumship, spiritual tools, real life experiences, raw, real, and wise, healing, health, etc., etc. All the things we go through as humans, everything from awakening to Zen, we will be covering in this podcast. And we will have special guests along the way. Stay tuned to hear who those names will be in the upcoming series episodes. So I am Peaceful Nick the Medium. If you want to find out anything more about me, go to peacefulnickthemedium.com. Nick is with an N-I-K. And my origin story is I was born on a Tuesday in December. It was snowing, and I don't really know those details, but
You slid out of a slippery tunnel, and that's all you knew.
That's right. I don't remember it. But I was born to an alcoholic mother and an alcoholic father. And so I had a very tumultuous upbringing. We struggled a lot in many, many ways with toxicity, dysfunction, abuse. There was a lot of stuff that was hard. It was really hard stuff. And I always had this underlying feeling that I didn't belong in that situation and that wasn't going to be my destiny. So I worked very hard and got some lucky breaks here and there. I worked very hard to overcome those things. I went to a lot of therapy, read a lot of self-help books, which we'll talk about book recommendations later. Um, I eventually got married. I've been married for 29 years. I have two adult sons and two wonderful daughters-in-law, a beautiful new granddaughter. I have my bachelor's degree in biology, my master's degree in astronomy. I work in science communication and education, and I've done that for 20 years. And about 6 years ago, I had some mediumship experiences that I was not expecting, was not on my bingo card. And we will talk about how that transpired later. So tell us your origin story.
The story is the same. I slid out of a tunnel too, and I saw the light. I came out an old soul, and I am Lady Shadowe. I am an author, a playwright, a paranormal investigator, a psychic empath, a tarot card reader, and designer of my own cards, which we'll talk more about later. I'm also the founder and proprietor of soulsandspirits.com, which is a gathering place for spiritually minded people and those who want to walk a love-based Wiccan path. We have a bit of a theme going on over there. So I am the witch, and my dear friend Nick is the medium, and she brings a wonderful spiritual scientific mind to our chats and our friendship, and I bring the creative mind, the spiritual creative mind to our chats and our friendship and to the world. And together we're combining our forces, the science of the creative mind in the world of spirit and physical body, and just trying to make the best of it all. Really, we just want to talk about how to make our lives richer, more fun, more creative, more thoughtful, and balanced. Like you, I always had an inkling for survival, but not just to survive as the fittest, but I came out of old soul like you did, I think, because you are very wise beyond your years. When we met at 19, we both knew that, which again, story for later. But same thing. I was born to alcoholic grandfather, alcoholic father who has since passed, just had to go through a couple stepdads in there, kind of figure out my own way and understand that family is this kind of obligation that we are born with, but then later in life we can kind of choose to mold ourselves and to take responsibility for however our parents chose to raise us. And through also the alcoholic behavior and addiction in my family, I decided I wasn't going to let that get to me. I was kind of a happy-go-lucky kid in general. My mom provided for us a lot of really interesting amenities. Like I had horses growing up, which was amazing, but we didn't have much more than that. We had just enough to indulge ourselves in a couple of horses. We lived on a mini ranch in the high top of the Nevada mountains across from the Sierras, and northern Nevada was amazing. So that also taught me a lot of independence and survival skills, and to just be, to grow into my own. And I learned to be very creative because I didn't have access to the world like most people didn't have. I didn't have cable growing up, cable TV. So MTV was a foreign idea to me until I could get to a friend's house. I had to use the land to entertain myself, get my hands dirty, working in on our farm with, building our own fences for the horses and all of that. So that's, I think, where I became kind of the witch, because I loved nature. I love weather, thunderstorms, rain, grounding myself. And it was, those are the beginnings of how we were formed. So yeah. And then as I grew up, I gravitated like you toward the self-help. I did a little of Al-Anon and Alateen to get through my addictive situation at home and the patterns that ensued from that, and became a spiritualist in my 20s. Started studying tarot cards and the love-based, light-based Wicca. I don't like to mess around with the dark occult side of things, because why would I dick around with something dark when love is the most powerful vibration in the universe? So I'm obviously going to want to work with the most powerful energy that I can. So that's my story pretty much.
And love is the highest frequency. Everything, and
Absolutely.
I can tell you that as a medium, which we'll get into later. And I want to say something about your origin story that I never realized until this moment after 30 something years of knowing each other. I also grew up with horses and was out in nature. And although we were very, very low income for many years, I
Yes.
was out in nature fishing, gigging, eating
Yep.
frogs, catching,
Drinking from the streams.
riding
Yep.
horses. I was outside a lot, and nature is very important to me. And maybe that's why I had such a propensity to follow science
Ah.
in my career. So it all kind of goes together. So, how did Lady Shadowe meet Peaceful Nick?
Would you want to answer that?
I will say I was in my studio in San Francisco proper, for those of you. I wasn't in Fresno. A lot of people say they're from San Francisco, but they're from Fresno.
Or the Bay Area, which is
Yeah.
also not San Francisco. Exactly.
I was in a studio downstairs in San Francisco, and I hear this knock on my door. And lo
Yes.
and behold, I'm a short little Italian girl. And I open the door to this flaming red beauty who's so tall, I didn't even know what to think, but so loving and kind. And she said,
Well, what happened was I love loud music.
and
And
so do
I was
I.
renting, yes, I was renting the flat above her, just a room in a flat. But I heard the thumping of some awesome music. Don't remember what it was. You remember it. I was also playing some Madonna music while I was cleaning my room. So I was like, what are the chances of someone down there doing the same thing? So I popped down and yeah, and cute little Italian with a tall redhead. We immediately started laughing about the fact that we like loud music. And I said, listen, I live right upstairs and I totally respect that you like to turn it up. So I will also turn it up. And, you know, as long as neither one of us complains, we got this, except we did have one stick in the mud roommate, which we'll tell you about in a second. But we bonded from there. I think you actually made me your famous fettuccine Alfredo that afternoon that you always whipped
We
up for me.
I think we talked for 4 hours straight and knew each
Something
other's
like that. Yeah.
entire life story the first day, and we were friends ever since.
It was pretty awesome. Yeah, yeah. And we've been through a lot over the years because, you know, we became friends before the internet, people. When
Yes.
you had to write letters physically and actually put them in a mailbox and stamp them. And that's how we had to stay in touch for so many years, you know, through the 90s and 2000s before both of us could afford a computer to find each other and connect more easily. And, you know, because in those days too, you changed phone numbers, you'd call a number, it's been disconnected. You know, I've had my cell phone number for
And
the
if you
same
weren't
amount
at
of
home
years.
to get the call, you
Right.
weren't home to get the call.
Right. And if you have to move on the fly because the creditors are coming after you, then you're going to get that disconnected phone number, and there's no alternatives back in the day. So yeah, Nick and I hung out. I had a car. We lived in San Francisco, like I said, the sunset of San Francisco, where it was foggy in the summertime, nice and cool, beautiful, fun. I still visit there. We both visit there when we can. I was just there about 6 months ago, taking my family through the tour of Noriega, and where we that time that I don't know if we should mention that time that I was crying about not having a Christmas tree, and it was Christmas Eve, and what did we do?
Went to Safeway.
You remember?
I remember.
And what did we do?
There was a little tiny, sickly looking tree that needed a home,
It was close to closing time.
and we commandeered it.
Yeah, we threw it into my Wayne's World car.
I remember vividly.
Which was a baby blue Datsun or something with pink stripes, racing stripes on it, which couldn't go more than 40 miles an hour. So I don't know why it had racing stripes on it, but yeah. So
You
we
didn't
had
win a
such
lot.
great yeah. Yeah. So Nick and I, you know, we traipsed around San Francisco. I don't remember. Did you end up working at the Olive Garden with me for a
Yes.
while?
Yes, you
Yep,
convinced me to leave my full-time job because I desperately wanted to finish college. And I had a full-time job in One Market Plaza, downtown San Francisco. And she said, start waitressing.
I said, you'll make quicker money, better money in less hours, cash in your pocket. and you can sleep in every day.
And I could go to school full. My biggest thing was I wanted to go to school full time, and I couldn't do it working at that insurance company.
Yeah, no, you can't. Exactly.
It changed the trajectory of my life.
And what's funny is I probably helped also influence your decision. Not that I influenced your decision to become a medium, but to stay the way of the entrepreneur life now, so that we can, use the hours of the day as we see fit to do our work now. So it's kind of like we
definitely
mirror each
inspired
other.
by your moxie, I'll say. Definitely inspired by your moxie, because as I got married and was raising my children, we lived very far away from each other, so we weren't in touch all the time. We've had periods in our friendship where we weren't in touch consistently, and we've had long periods of time where we were. And so, but I always knew your
my zip code.
yeah, I always knew your ability to make ends meet no matter what. And I remember a friend of yours said, Lady Shadowe would rather work 80 hours a week for herself than 40 hours a week for somebody else.
Oh, absolutely. And that's still my motto today.
And all entrepreneurial people work at least 80 hours a week. You're never not working.
You're never not working. It's a 24-hour thing, but it's so much fun. You and I, it's been just getting this podcast together has taken many hours of the day, every day for the last few weeks to get everything together for it. It's not an easy thing. People think, oh, it's just easy to talk for an hour, but it's not the talking that's not easy. It's the social, media work and laying the groundwork, creating our intros, going out and doing our homework on certain subjects. And we both are very well versed in what we do with our lives. I mean, you're a full-time medium. I share some of my spiritual work with my other job, which is actually an off-Broadway playwright. So I do all things creative, but I have several facets of what all that adds up to and looks like, as where you are luckily get to be more laser focused on creating your reading business, which is changing many lives as we speak, which is so amazing.
It has changed my life, and it's not something I ever planned on doing. And I will tell my origin story there. I also, in a moment, I also want to talk about living authentically and how you have always lived very authentically. And one example is when we first met, the first few months, we had a lady who lived upstairs in a room next to yours, and she was not behaving well as a roommate. But you are so authentic. You were talking to me about some of the situations, because I remember we opened the door from the downstairs to the upstairs so I could come up in and out.
Yes.
He was mad about that.
This is another San Francisco story, by the way. Indeed, back we were just in that same time frame. Yeah.
So we were outside in the backyard, and she could hear us chatting, and you were like, I don't care if she hears us. I'm being my authentic, honest self. And what happened?
Well, I had mentioned nicely to this so-called roommate, to please be respectful in shared spaces. For instance, her boyfriend, she was seeing, when you're in love, you bring your boyfriend over, and it's one thing to hang out, it's fine. But he would be in his underwear in the kitchen constantly cooking 3 meals a day with her. And it was a very small kitchen. So if I would want to go in and, heat something up in the microwave, and let me just tell you, I am not offended by men in their underwear whatsoever. Right. But they were interestingly making it very blatant. It was
weren't
almost
respecting
borderline
boundaries. They had no
right.
boundaries.
Yes. And it was very unapologetic, like not even, oh, sorry, my man is walking around with this giant package in your face while you're trying to cook your spaghetti. No, it was literally, we're just going to take this kitchen over, and I was in the way if I needed to use them. And I rarely use the kitchen. You and I would go out and get takeout, or we eat at the Olive Garden, before or after our shift.
Leftovers.
Yeah. But so we were out in the backyard, and all the windows were open, and it's a 2-story house, but you could hear through other windows. And I was venting to you about the situation if this is repeating, and I had asked them nicely, can you let me know when you're going to use the kitchen? Maybe we can schedule some time so that we can all eat in peace without, running into some giant balls in my face.
I was gonna say, can
Um,
you ask your boyfriend to put his junk away before he comes in the kitchen?
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to accidentally eat the wrong hot dog. It's just it's ridiculous. So, I guess gentle wasn't enough, so I was venting to you about it, and I was openly venting. I wasn't mean. I wasn't using curse words or
No, you weren't.
calling horrible names. I was just stating facts that, if you're in a shared space, you got to have respect. And I am like 19 or 20, diplomatically venting to you. And you said, oh, she might be upstairs. And I said, oh, that's fine. She needs to hear this too. Like I'm at the end of my rope, and she needs to hear a little truth about how her actions are affecting others. And sure enough, she overheard me talking about this uncomfortable situation, and she came flying out the window, her and her boyfriend. You are such a bitch. How dare you accuse me of such a thing? My boyfriend's my boyfriend. I pay rent here too, blah, blah, blah. And I said, and I remember I looked up at her and I just said, yes, that's fine. But I pay rent here too.
Right.
So you have to think about that. And then her boyfriend said something like, wait till I come down there. I said, what are you going to do? You're going to beat up a girl? Like that's just not a thing. And plus I'm probably bigger than him anyhow. Right. So
you could have beaten him
I'm
up,
like
I'm
6
sure.
foot tall. Right. So he did end up coming down, and your boyfriend was either coming over or he was hanging out with us. And then he just told him, hey, let's just be respectful. We've got women here. So, it was just mostly a bit of a yelling match. But I said, I'm sorry, I'm standing my ground here. I mean, you have to really understand that, again, roommates mean shared spaces, means respect. Right. So, I mean, that's all. I mean, I wasn't afraid to speak up of injustices even then. And if I don't, I get sick. And I think that's important for everyone to know. If you need something from your partner, your lover, your friend, the world, your job, speak up about it, talk about it, and go to the right place to talk. Go to the person that can directly change help that relationship be better. Because if you don't, that's where disease starts. And we don't want that, right? We don't want any disease. We want to live joyful, balanced, happy lives. And that includes using the communication skills you have to make life easier, because we're always going to have to share the space with, like, the earth and our office and our lives with our spouses, with other people. And it's so important to stand your ground on things that you need. And it's okay to say what you need. Right, Nick?
Right. Yes, it's absolutely okay to say what you need. It's okay to have boundaries and demand respect, and do it diplomatically, of course, until the situation gets, could get crazy. But you should always start with, boundaries, respect, and, you have to be respectful to other people too. But
well, and it's our job firstly to say something, but then we have to let it go, because obviously we can't control how other people are going to react. But it's our fault if we don't put it out there in the first place, and then we expect other people to be a mind reader.
Right.
So
right.
That's what we don't.
I will say that your experience, the experience you were just explaining about standing up for boundaries and respect, it kind of has been a thread through our entire friendship over the years, and you as a person, and is goes hand in hand with your white witch practice. And I was, not that I wasn't being respectful or kind to people, but I was on a totally different track. Like, I was science, science, science. I actually was aware of the woo woo. I watched Ancient Aliens, and my mom, she passed in 86. She read UFO books, and I've got some stories about paranormal stuff that happened in my life when I was younger. So I was aware of paranormal things. I wasn't totally like, oh no, that's not possible. I always knew the possibility was there, but I was following the science career. And one day I had a phone call from from one of my sisters. I have a bunch of sisters, and she told me that our friend's son died. Now, he was 25 years old, and I saw him one time as a newborn, and I had not seen him again because I moved across the country, and I didn't know anything about him. And in my head, I automatically knew, and this used to happen to me all the time. I knew claircognizantly, that's when you know something in your head and you don't know why you know it. The knowledge is there. I knew he died of a drug overdose. Nobody told me he died of a drug overdose. Nobody hinted that he died of a drug overdose. I knew nothing about this person. But that kind of stuff happened to me all the time. I knew stuff all the time, my whole life, and I thought everybody did. But apparently they don't. I learned that later. So I laid down to take a nap, and I wasn't laying down a few seconds. And in my head, and this never happened to me before, clear as day, I saw his face, I heard his voice, his red sweater, his gold chain, his black hair, and he leaned in full color and said to me, "Tell my mom I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it." And I was in shock. It was so dramatic. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before. And I couldn't go to sleep, obviously. And now that I'm a trained medium, I know that happened because my brainwave state was shifting because I was resting, right? My mind was clear. So I called my sister and I said, "Oh my God, Brandon," I have permission to share this from his family, by the way. "Brandon came to me in a vision and said, 'Tell my mom I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it.'" Well, this all happened the day he passed away, so we didn't know what happened to him. So a few days later, I get the phone call from my sister and she said, "Brandon died of a drug overdose." And then I talked to his mother and said, "This has never happened to me before, but this is what happened." And, she was, of course, devastated that her son passed away. And so, we had some conversations and then I just kind of I just kind of blew it off. I didn't think any, it was cool, but I just went on with my life. I was going to work, I was taking care of my family, I was cooking, cleaning, doing the mom and wife stuff and the working mom and wife stuff. And a few months later, my daughter-in-law's grandmother had a head injury. She was perfectly healthy, but she fell down the stairs and injured her head. And she ended up on hospice care at home over a few months' time. And my son was with her, and the whole family, her whole family was there, and my son was there. And she passed away in hospice care at home. And of course, that was sad and devastating because her and my daughter-in-law were extremely close, very, very close. And in my head, I kept seeing this red heart with her name on it over and over and over. It was relentless, and I could not get it to stop. And her name's Dottie. And I texted my son and I said, "Dottie will not leave me alone." And at this point, I wasn't a medium. I had no idea I was a medium. I just knew Dottie was putting this red heart in my head. And I said, "She keeps showing me this red heart and she's driving me crazy. I can't go to sleep. I can't eat. I can't think. I can't do anything. She's just blasting my brain with this heart." 10 seconds later, he texted me a picture of her keychain, which was a red heart with her name on it. And I almost collapsed in my kitchen. I was standing by the stove when I received the text, and I had to grab the stove to keep falling because my knees buckled. I could not believe that happened. And I thought, "Oh my God, this is real. There is something happening, and I cannot believe it." So you do what you do. You go to YouTube or Google and you try to find out what the heck is happening to your brain. Do I need a CAT scan? Remember, I'm a scientist. I knew about woo woo, but I was in science deep, like deep, deep, deep in science. And I found somehow, I guess I realized it was mediumship somewhere along the way. And I found a mentor and started taking classes immediately and doubled up and became a trained medium and then got certified to teach mediumship. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And it's
Amazing.
totally changed my life, everything about my life. is so different. My
Oh, I can
mindset,
attest to that.
yeah,
Yes.
my mindset, my clarity, my compassion. Not that I wasn't compassionate before, but it's just eased me in certain ways is the best way to describe it.
So amazing. And that is what happens when we listen to our inner higher selves telling us what we're supposed to do here. And of course we have a choice to ignore it, or we can follow it, or we can push it aside for so long. But I'm so glad you chose to not ignore it, because here you are changing people's lives every single day with Nick is a sought after medium, everybody. So if you are looking to get a reading, you should book her when you can, because she is busy all day long, this girl. And I have such respect. And again, and I have a similar story where, listening to the higher self and following it, I just caught it at a little bit of an early age, because I knew that I want to be a writer and director and producer and for theater and television and all that good stuff. Um, and the same, I just knew that was my calling. I was a little writer as a kid, and I made a little magazine called Horse Talk when I was like 11 years old and sold it to family and friends as a subscription. It was so funny. My mom got me this little typewriter, and I would create stuff and go copy it, design it, and send it in the mail like an actual magazine. And so I knew I was going to be a creative person, but I loved, like you now, where you just, once you leave the life that you were unhappy with, you never go back.
Yes,
It's very difficult to go back to that
yes,
after you've been living your truth, right? For a
yes.
couple of years, and you've already proven that you can do it. And I also, when I turned 30, I became a full-time theater producer and playwright, and I always moonlighted Souls and Spirits on the side. I've become now more of a 50-50 now. But once you've experienced the success of being able to do that, it's like impossible, because you're going against your true self and your destiny when you go back on anything, due to fear, right? Because
Yeah.
when you act in fear, then it completely changes the trajectory of both your peace of mind and the people that you are supposed to affect on the highest level, which again, we go back to love and the highest vibration. Because when we first love ourselves and treat ourselves to work that we are meant to do, it changes everything else, and it inspires others to do the same. And imagine a world that where 90% of us instead of 10% of us are actually doing what we're meant to do, and enjoying our work, and it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like we're just supposed to do this because we're filling our time with things that are productive, not only monetarily, but also because we're in service to not only our higher selves, but to our communities, right? So it's amazing when that you finally connected that. And I was so happy to hear that you made that switch, because it was scary, I'm sure, for you at first, going from the $8 to $500,000 salary a year to, or more in some of your career cases. But then going to, okay, I'm going right into the unknown and I'm going to make it work. But it's so much more fulfilling, right?
It, when I've considered, for safety and fear reasons, when I've considered going back to that old job, it literally makes me want to vomit.
Yeah.
It physically makes me sick because for many reasons, but because education, traditional education, is not education anymore.
No.
If I could
Agreed.
actually teach students,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be so bad, but it's not. It is so different, and that's a story for another time. But
Yeah.
just thinking about it right now makes I feel like I want to throw up.
Well, my most recent play, has a line in it about teachers don't teach anymore; they supervise, because their
Yes.
phone is their teachers now, and
Yes.
that's a total fact. If you're allowed to have a phone in your classroom, it's your teacher. But similar to you, I mean, you just had a belated experience, but my mother at 16, just being the cautious mom, and I'm sure you've told your kids the same thing, not really thinking, but by default, we're as a society taught, you pick a career that gives you some joy, doesn't, or no joy, just as long as it gives you money and benefits, right? My mom said to me, she said, you're coming up to your college years. Do you know what you want to do? And I said, oh yeah, I want to be on Broadway and I want to get a show onto television one day. And my mom said, oh, you can't do that. Why? Because that doesn't happen for the average person. Oh, I said, well, I'm not an average person. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do with my life and I'm going to go do it. And she said, well, you really should have a plan B because no one gets to do that full time. And I said, but if you watch TV, someone's doing it full time, right? Like go to the theater, someone's doing that full time, getting their plays onto Broadway. And so I basically went into this and said, okay, mom, I'm only 16, but I'm telling you, there is no plan B for me. It's plan A or nothing. And I think that's the only way that I'm going to find happiness with all my talents. And I told her this at 16.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure she remembers the conversation. But so everyone listening out there, if your job makes you want to vomit and you know that there's a gift that you need to give the world, please start thinking about taking the leap and going for it. Because when you follow your higher self and your higher intuition and what it wants and the things that don't bring you nausea, but that bring you light and joy, the money will follow. I promise. You know, so take that heed, however you will, and take Nick's story, because I would have wished Nick was doing this in her 20s, because imagine how many more beautiful years she would have doing this. But I mean, not that you don't have many more ahead, but I'm sure if you could go back and rewind to the place where you would want to ideally have started your mediumship, work would have been much earlier than where you are now, being that we're both in our early 50s at this point.
Yeah. I think that spirit allowed me to have the life I had because I could not have done this when my kids were younger.
Okay. Yeah.
They were too involved in too many things. I was working 2 jobs, getting my master's degree. It was chaos. I could not have done it, but it happened at the perfect time.
Right timing.
Because, and that's a great segue to how can you change everything instantly?
Yes. The name of our episode is how to change anything in 1 second.
Right. And
every second counts. Yeah.
Every second counts. And
yes.
I learned something in the Celestine Prophecy years ago in the 90s. I read this book. If anybody knows, it's a great book. It was the first spiritual book I really read and didn't really know it was a spiritual book at the time until later. But it's every person you meet, every event that happens, everything in your life leads you to the next thing where you're supposed to be. Like every interaction is for a reason. I was in education for 20 years because I needed to sharpen up my compassion. Something, that's an example. So
absolutely.
I think I needed those experiences and I needed time to heal some trauma before I became a medium, because
absolutely
one of the most important things about the healing modalities, as you know, as a white witch, Lady Shadowe,
yes,
is if we're not healed ourselves, we're going to bring darkness and fear into our readings. And I know you never give darkness or fear readings. I never give darkness or fear readings because spirit isn't dark or fearful.
That's right.
Only love.
We have enough of that already in the world.
Yes.
And also, but those of you who do have the nauseous career and the job they can't stand, and we'll get into future podcasts, how I implement my Wicca and ritual into helping with decisions and helping with things, manifestations and things to come quickly versus on their own time, is, we do have to choose every day, like you said, not just to heal, to get to the next day or the next minute or the next career or the next relationship, but choosing it first and while you're healing, or choosing and then saying, well, maybe in 20 years I'll do that. Or if you're hearing us and saying, I would really love to do blank, but I got to go to my nauseous job right now to do blank. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying to bide your time, like kind of my mom wanted me to do, and just go into a plan B and then decide that, oh, I'm old now, let's go for plan A because I spent so much time doing this. We're saying that, when your intuitive natural self knows when it's ready, like you with the red heart and the name, it will tug and tug and tug at you, and people and things and media and just energy will send you signs. And we're saying not to ignore that when it gets to the point where we're saying something that resonates with you and you've already been thinking about it, for instance, you out in the audience, to choose to take it into consideration and say, you know what, I don't have to wait 10 years to get 10 years of therapy to start choosing this now. And again, it's right now. I mean, all we have is this minute, right? And we're going through seconds and minutes. And again, what about the example, Nick, of like when we are in a car and you barely make your flight, right? Because you're cognizant and you are focused on getting to the airport, and maybe you got a runner light or two. Not that I'm advocating for that, but you have to just balls to the wall, get to your goal. And you make that flight in under seconds. Again, that's where seconds count. So sometimes, or I was driving once from Reno to San Francisco during our friendship days. And it was a Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock. I'm going along and I'm digging with the radio because there was a song that came on that was really horrible. And I wanted to change the radio. So I slowed down my car to change the station to get rid of that song. And had I not slowed down that car to hear that horrible song, a car came flying across this 6-lane I-80 near Oakland freeway, came flipping across and rolled in front of me in just enough time for me to stop my car, slow it down to go around. And this happened in front of me like it looked like a Hollywood stunt. It was crazy. And if I had been going the speed that I was prior to that song coming on where I had to slow down to change the station, I would have hit that car head on. We're talking about seconds, Nick. Seconds. I remember, I think I told you about that when that happened.
Yeah.
And I immediately called my family because I was just had been coming from a visit from them. And I thought, oh my God, I was seconds away from dying. Because my car was a little tin can compared to this giant, sedan. And I will never forget that. And it was seconds. So there's another song called An Unguarded Minute by Hall & Oates. It's an 80s song, but I think about that all the time. An unguarded minute has an accident in it. And it's not just about slowing ourselves down and being more cognizant of our choices, but it's also about, hey, time is precious. So if you have something you want to do, or someone you want to hug, or someone you need to repair something with, or something you want to go give the world, start doing it now. Just start working on the little pieces of doing it now, because it does matter. And I know we didn't get into the how, so maybe you can start to tell us, okay, so I want to change the trajectory of something within the next hour. You say, I can do it in 1 second. Maybe, Nick, you can give the audience a little bit of advice on how to do that in less than a minute. How quickly can you change that thought and change everything?
You can change your thoughts instantly. I want to talk about lucky girl syndrome, which was scientifically studied. Lucky girl syndrome was these girls on the internet apparently were like, we're lucky girls. All the luck comes our way and everything they wanted happened. Well, scientists studied this and realized, oh, it's their mindset. They know these things are going to happen, so they happen. One of my sons is that way. I always tell him he has the luck of the Irish because through his life, everything he wanted to do happened. And I always said he's in every game he won, and every, time he bought a lottery ticket, he'd win at least, $5 or $10, luck, luck, luck. And so I changed my mindset when I wake up in the morning. And I'm a zombie in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but I have to get up in the morning.
Yep. Me too. I'm a night owl. So know how hard it is for me to wake up before noon.
So when I wake up, now I say 5 things I'm grateful for immediately, instead of saying, oh my God, my head hurts. Oh my God, it's raining. Oh my God, it's going to be so hot today. That's how I used to wake up.
Yep.
And a few months ago, I learned about this lucky girl syndrome, and I'm like, okay, it's a beautiful sunny day, or it's a rainy day, or
that's right.
There's air in the atmosphere to breathe. I love my bed and I love my pillows, I say 5 beautiful things, and that sets the tone for the day. So if you don't hear anything else in this podcast, if you've listened this far, know that if you wake up and say 5 positive things every day, it can be simple, it can be mundane, doesn't matter what it is. Say 5 things you're grateful for as soon as you wake up. It will change the course of your day. And if you do that every single day, it will impact your life in ways you will never imagine. Now, as far as changing everything when you want to manifest something, you have to set an intention for, like we were talking about, quitting your nauseous job. Don't just quit your job without another income. Let's start with that. But you can start a side gig. It can be a very small side gig. Maybe you want to make t-shirts and sell one t-shirt at a time. Maybe you have an invention. I had the invention mop socks years ago in like 1995. And then 10 years later, they were out in stores. Did I invent them or get any money? No, but I did think about it.
Yep.
So had I had the wherewithal to invent them, I, would have been a millionaire by now.
Yes.
But you want to set your intention that I am successful in this area. There's a famous story about Jim Carrey, the actor, who I want to say wrote $1 million check and kept it in his wallet for years and years and years and years. He wrote himself $1 million check, and he would look at that and he would say, this is my $1 million check. I'm going to get $1 million check for my acting. And eventually, of course, he got many millions of dollars checks. So you have to set that intention. You have to believe this has already happened. You have to see yourself in the situation. Like the lucky girls, they saw that this happened, whatever the situation is. They saw themselves in the situation as if it has already happened.
Yes.
But you have to do the work.
Right. Well, more so the work is energetic, everyone. Mm-hmm. It is it's two things really. It's not just the intention, but it's it's a feeling universe. And we've talked about this in a lot of our live videos where you're tapping into the feeling of something rather than the wishful thinking of something, right? So
yes.
If you sit here and wish it away, yes. but meanwhile you're concerned about your finances and your family stressing you out, it's going to cancel itself out because, and we can't say this enough, you can brainwash yourself. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's actually happening and what it thinks it's happening.
Yes.
So you can go into a meditation and literally picture yourself winning a bunch of money or getting the car of your dreams. And even if it's just for 5 minutes, you'll start seeing that car more often. You'll start feeling the excitement that brings, that authentic excitement, not excitement that's mixed with other negative emotions that are happening to you at the moment. You've got to set aside the time to give it the full authentic kind of soak in, right?
Right.
And then secondly, David Bayer, one of my favorite gurus, he talks about the 2 states of mind, the powerful and the primal. And the primal side is the fear and the, oh my God, and the ego, the self-talk, the limiting beliefs, and all of that, the negative self-talk, that is. And then there's the powerful state, which is everything's going to be fine. I've got everything I need right now. I don't have a worry in the world. Besides, this is all an illusion anyway. So why do we have to really worry? Because it's a temporary illusion. And so I'd rather stand in a peaceful, balanced place than stand in a chaotic, fearful, oh my God, panic, stress state all the time. So if you can also set these intentions in those states, the yes. powerful state,
yes.
You're gonna expedite your results even more. So that's also important to know, is that there has to be some authentic feeling behind it, and emotion, and it can't feel so far away. I'm working on getting onto Broadway, and I've been working my own intentions on, okay, well, Broadway's right there. My theater that I work out of right now is a half a block away, so we're physically very close. So it's just a matter of kind of getting into the right circles to get certain scripts read by certain people. And, but that's easy because people read my scripts all the time. It's just get it into the proper hands that are someone that's going to connect with it. So I can't think of it as this far off thing. I have to think of it as something happening right now, right over our heads in another parallel universe, right below us in another universe, and I'm just going to match that frequency up and into those places where it's already happened, it is happening, and it will happen. So it's hard to describe that, right? Because that's a scientific thing for you more to describe than me, but I can feel it as where you can probably describe it better with your quantum,
Oh, we can have a whole episode about that.
Yeah.
But what you're describing is not only seeing yourself in that success, you're doing the work. You work constantly to make that success happen. So you have to see yourself in it and do the work. And something a lot of people forget is you have to allow yourself to receive it. Many people have blocks because they have imposter syndrome, or they feel like they don't deserve it because past stuff that has happened to them. You have to allow yourself to receive it. You have to know you deserve that success, because many of us come from, tumultuous lives where lots of things have happened and we think, I don't deserve this, that, or the other.
That
Or
would be about 80% of us. Yeah.
I grew up on food stamps, so I don't deserve $1 million check,
Right.
But everybody, and things are set in motion for us at a certain time for a certain reason.
Yes.
And I think that there's definitely the frequency match. I don't want to go into that now because we're short on time, but we can definitely talk about that later. I can go into a whole thing about the quantum science and all that.
Love that.
A couple of points I just want to make for those of you who want to change your life in a second. Get clear on your vision. So when you set your intention, you have to be clear on what you are accomplishing and see yourself in that accomplishment. Visualize it daily. You can be
and the authenticity of that.
Yes.
Make it because the universe knows when you're faking. So if you're saying you want to be over here, but like if you're saying I'm going to be a doctor, but I'm not going to go to medical school, well,
you're not going to be the doctor.
right. So I mean, maybe you'll be a doctor of something else, but yeah, you have to be authentic to what you know is possible and what your frequency can handle. And that means knowing yourself. And like you just said, you don't know yourself until you stop to listen, you process your trauma, and you have to catch your limiting beliefs. Absolutely. Right. So keep going.
Right. So you have to be clear on your vision, visualize daily. You have to affirm your worth. So don't think you don't deserve it. Every single person deserves love, and every single person deserves success. You have to really truly believe you deserve it, and you have to take action, do the work. Like you said, if you want to be a doctor but you don't go to medical school, you're not going to be a doctor, a medical doctor anyway.
A doctor of woo-woo. Well, that could happen. We can certify
that could be my new name, Peaceful Nick, the doctor of woo-woo.
Certifications available, $49.99.
Yeah, I'll type it right up for you. I got a printing press and
with a side of chicken wings.
Yeah, exactly.
A free side of chicken wings.
And you have to keep your vibration high. So you have to be grateful and joyful. Like you said earlier, our body doesn't know the difference between what we imagine ourselves in and what we're really in. So if you're living in a state, of ick, and you're visualizing yourself in a state of ick, you're going to stay in a state of ick. If you're in a state like when I was a kid, things were bad. Things were really bad.
Yeah. Me too at times.
But I always thought, this isn't my life. This isn't the life I'm going to live forever.
That's right.
Get out of this. Before my mom passed away, she said to me, I said, oh, I'm going to go to college. We were dirt poor, food stamps. My sisters were waitresses, making a couple bucks a day, like dirt poor. And I remember telling my mom that I was going to go to college after high school. And she's like, no, you're not. When you turn 16, you're going to start working. And when I was 14, I started working for $1.25 an hour washing dishes. And I just thought, I know this is not going to be my life. Well, she passed away when I was 15. And then I moved across the country to San Francisco. That's how I ended up in San Francisco with my dad and my stepmom. And that gave me the opportunity to change my life. That to me was a lucky break. So I have to stay grateful for that and
Yes.
keep in a high vibration. Um, I avoid negative news. I avoid the news altogether these days. I avoid negative people. I avoid people who have fear-based thinking. I avoid gossip as much as I possibly can. Um, I avoid anything that's going to lower my vibration. I won't watch violent TV shows. I won't watch people fight. Like anything like that is gone from my life as much as humanly possible. So I keep my vibration as high. I believe that I can accomplish anything I want. So we have to let go of the limiting beliefs. I think you mentioned that earlier. And timing, trust timing. If you're forcing, the universe is going to say, no, 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 no.
Well, and the other thing with forcing is too, you don't have to force anything.
Nope.
If
It's
once
just
you
flow.
have aligned yourself, like you said, with that frequency, and your stomach is no longer nauseous, and like we right now we are vibrating super high because we're talking about things that mean so much to
Yeah.
us and that are so important and make us happy and free us from the chains by being able to share all this information, right? So when you're vibrating this high because it's all authentic and what's coming in is authentic, what's going out is authentic, and it's joyful and it's peaceful, you can only attract more of that, right? And we can't control what families we were born into. So for our first 16, 18 years, uh, it's the next 18 of undoing all of that,
Yep.
right? Because we are not always as cognizant as I was when I was a kid about what I wanted to do and seeing things right through. I mean, I called out my parents on injustices all the time. They're
Oh
like,
my
how do you,
God.
they're even like, how do you even know that's going on?
Yes.
How dare you call me out? And I said, because, I don't know. I am an old soul. I'm kind of awake. I see it. I'm observing.
Yeah.
And so you have to, once you can get out into the world and take responsibility for who you want to be and fix, like you said, all of that trauma and reverse all that stuff. It's like, and it can be let go in 1 second. Again, 1 second changes everything. A little epiphany, a new relationship sparks up, something that we said resonates, boom, uh,
Yep.
the spark goes off and someone is off and running like the horses at the racetrack. And 1 second, I mean, how many decisions do we make a day? Hundreds. And how long does a decision take to make? Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, split seconds, right?
Yeah.
We make a decision very quickly, but under a second sometimes we can make a decision. So a second does change everything.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about, we're coming to the end of the hour, and I want to talk about what should people expect from our podcast coming up. I
Oh,
know that we're going to have weekly themes. We're going to have guests. What are some of the themes you want to cover?
I would like to cover anybody who's interested in um, love-based Wicca. I have a course that I wrote several years ago that is for sale on the website. I have designed a beautiful new tarot deck that is at the printer as we speak. That will be for sale. I want to talk about the tools of ritual and how to bring anybody who's interested in the Wiccan path, into fruition to walk that path. I want to demystify Wicca. I want to answer questions about it as a witch, but also as a creative and an artist. I think we should talk about just not only the type of spirituality that we practice and how to implement it naturally and authentically into our lives so that we can have more balanced and joyful lives, but also just like you said, just the walk of being a human and the daily struggles that we all face. We have so many tips and tricks, everyone, for you guys to feel better, more productive, healthier, energetically, spiritually, mentally, and physically. Just little tips that we've learned over the years that have helped us. Everything from a stupid little nutritional thing like a vitamin to, oh my gosh, big things, manifesting big, big things. Um, So we have, not that we are perfect, we are still in, obviously in the works of developing our full selves. And we're just two chicks, we're just a medium and a witch who are best friends, who are living life like everybody else. But I'd like to just offer our audiences a place to laugh and to feel good, and to use whatever little tools and tricks that we've learned, whether in the entrepreneurial world or the spiritual world, to just have a more rich, fulfilling life, kind of where we're at now. We're in our 50s now, right? We just want to like go out swinging, partying, having fun, braless. It's like
Yes.
it's all
Oh,
about like the
braless.
the braless. Oh my gosh. I call it Bridget Everetting. I've met Bridget Everett. She's fantastic. Maybe I'll get her on the podcast one day. She's a fantastic actress. Look up her show on HBO, Somebody Somewhere. So great. This woman, she's an amazing singer, and she's even taller than me. I mean, this woman is a Viking of beauty. And I love to channel my inner Bridget because she's so unapologetic for who she is and secure with her body. Her body is deliciously curvy and loves to go without a bra. And she's just got these beautiful pendulous breasts like I do and just flaunts them everywhere. And I have such respect. So we just need to love ourselves and our people and our communities more. And if there's more of that, we can overcome this loop of toxicity that is government and war and all of that,
And, and on that note about the lady with the super beautiful breasts, there's a lady
Are you
on,
talking about me?
yes, there's a lady on Instagram and probably other apps that called the Bird's Papaya. I think she has 4 kids and she's this gorgeous, beautiful woman, but her kids destroyed her belly as they do. I have, abdominal hernias right now because I had giant babies and
Oh,
I have to have them surgically fixed. But she is so about, listen, women's bodies change.
yeah.
And you want us to bear children, you're going to get stretch marks and flab. And it's beautiful. And, everybody follow her. She's amazing. I want to talk on the podcast about body positivity, love your body.
Yes.
It's hard when you're in your 50s because things don't look the same, they don't work the same.
Yep.
Our private areas change very much, and we will have a podcast to talk about the no-no square. And
They dropping it low.
yeah, things are different down there.
Things are
What is
different up here.
happening?
Things are different all over here.
Yeah, exactly. What happened to those labia minora? Where'd they go? Like they got lost somewhere. Like they
Well, we'll also have the men on as well who can talk about what their changes too. I mean, this
and
is not just about women. This is about all of us as human beings and our bodily, mentally, spiritual changes too. It's just a little bit of everything, right?
And on that note, my husband last year had prostate cancer at 52 years old and it was spreading. That's extremely young. He had to have very invasive, dramatic surgery from that. And we will be talking about men's health issues as well.
Yes.
And funnily enough, talk about manifesting in my husband's prostate cancer. He's cleared now, but he
Amazing.
still has follow-up. I had an appointment to record a podcast with another creator on June 10th. And his doctor's appointment follow-up for his cancer is June 10th. And I wasn't going to be able to go with him. But I was like, I really need to go with him. I really need to go with him. And the podcaster emailed me yesterday and said, we need to meet June 9th instead of June 10th.
Wow.
And so now I can record the podcast.
Amazing.
And I can go to the doctor's appointment.
See, the universe listens, and all we have to do is listen back, and we get the answers.
I saw myself at the appointment with him in my head. I could
oh my
see myself with him, and I know what the doctor's gonna be talking about. I could see the whole scenario, and boom, lo and behold, she emailed me to switch the appointment.
Amazing. I love it. That is, we have so many stories like that, everyone, that
So
we want to
many.
tell you these stories.
Thousands and thousands.
And they're not made up, totally true. So let's make sure that everyone tunes in again for the amazingness of these stories, because you don't want to miss the most random miracles that we have to share with you guys.
And I want to say, follow all our socials. Our link trees will be linked in the notes. Visit peacefulnickthemedium.com to see what kind of services I provide, and there are lots of them. Mediumship readings, tarot readings, oracle readings, guidance. I teach classes, teach about your spirit guide, soulsandspirits.com for Lady Shadowe's Wicca course, her tarot cards, her Cosmic Chris's
we get spiritual life coaching. We offer spiritual life coaching. So much. We also make custom wands. I make custom Wiccan wands that are pre-blessed with instructions, crystal points. I can create any color that you wish. I mean, it's straight from my two hands. Amazing. Yep. And yes, Peaceful Nick has so many offerings as well. So hit us up on our websites for sure. And if you want to be a guest, if you want to be a guest on our podcast and you have something really interesting to contribute to the conversation, and you're working on your path, or you're in your path, whatever it is, whether it's a spiritual path or something, scientific, paranormal, UFO, whatever it is, subject matter, we are open to all of it. So email us.
All of it. From awakening to Zen. Connect with us on the Soul Twin Stars Facebook and TikTok page. Links in the show notes. Email me at peacefulnickthemedium@gmail.com or soulsandspirits@yahoo.com for Lady Shadowe for any questions. And we cannot wait to see you again next week and on Magical Mondays.
Thanks for being with us here in spirit on the Soul Twins podcast. Find us on our Facebook page for Magical Mondays, live at 8:30 Eastern, to help slay your days and for giveaways. Find me, Lady Shadowe, on soulsandspirits.com and Peaceful Nick at peacefulnickthemedium.com. Nick with just a K. If you want to be a guest on our show, we would absolutely love that. Contact us at soulsandspirits@yahoo.com. See you next Friday and at 6 p.m. on Spotify or wherever else we can transcend our show to. Peace, love, and so many blessings to all of you. Until next time.